to the Family Movie
Hello.
Time podcast. We're here with Andre Ford. He's back.
Yep. Hello, everybody. What's up? Hello,
Um,
Jeff. Hello, Jeff. How you doing,
Hello,
man?
Andre. I'm delighted to have you back on the show. We are going to talk about the movie Matinee from 1993. It's directed by Joe
Yep,
Dante, and I want to let you
that's right.
I want to let you kick it off first. You have some points you want to make, so you got the mic.
Yeah, so the two main things is I guess I'll do a quick rehash of the movie just because this is a little scene movie. Not a lot of people saw it. It opened up and immediately bombed. It bombed and it's a small, intimate story, a very nostalgic trip where it takes place with a young boy in the early 60s whose dad, he's living on a military base in Florida. And around the time his dad, who's stationed away overseas, he's a Navy guy right when the Cuban Missile Crisis is about to come. So while the rest of the country is in fear of what could possibly happen, this young man and his friends, their interest is in the premiere of this new movie from a successful producer played by John Goodman. And it's all of their suburban hijinks as they go to this movie theater, and also with John Goodman's use of the fear that the town feels about what could possibly happen. And he wants to use it in this. He's based on William Castle, so he wants to like make this premiere the biggest thing possible with like, these big, it's about a big ant, it's called Matt, and he knows it's a piece of garbage. And so he knows that, but he has to promote it, and he's exploiting the fear of this town, and then things go awry. It's a slapstick comedy that's for a generation that Joe Dante and his contemporaries like Spielberg and Lucas and all of them, that was their childhood, was going to these movies. And this is something that would actually touch them in this era. Unfortunately, audiences in 1993 weren't feeling that at all. And it would only be a couple years later when movies like that kind of that touched on a similar theme, not the same plot, but with the same kind of hint of nostalgia and a love for that particular genre of movies, which are these schlocky 50s movies. Like, oh yeah, a big thing is like in that movie, Mant is about what all those movies in the 50s were about, the big monster movies and everything, which was about the fear of like what radiation, and that's where all those radiation movies came back. And this movie parodies those. So movies like Tarantula, or I was a teenage like Frankenstein, or like anything where like little animals mutated and became bigger, or human beings turned into things that ate you. And the escapism that's there from those early movies really shaped the minds of those filmmakers, like already like the ones I mentioned, but also in writings like Stephen King. In fact, in It, in the original book It, like there's a big chapter where the kids, actually that's kind of what the movie reminded me of rewatching it. Is it reminded me of like when the Losers Club in that book would go to these cheesy movies in the 50s, and they would find escapism in these schlocky movies, and that's what Pennywise would use to kind of hunt them in those. In the newer It movies, they kind of made it a little different, but in that book, that was a big thing. So the 2 points I wanted to bring up was that why the audience at that time, why it took so long for why in 93 this movie would flop, but then not that long afterwards, something like Ed Wood, or Mars Attacks, or something like that would come out, which like touches on it. We're still kind of like, these movies are clearly love letters to this particular era. And those are more memorable movies, whether you like them or not. I think everyone agrees on Ed Wood, but people are kind of a little different about Mars Attacks. But then you kind of have the same plot, only with better effects in the early 90s. Like, so that's when like Jurassic Park came out, and then Independence Day. And these are all like movies that are essentially 50s themes. It's like, okay, Jurassic Park, what is it about? Oh, people go to an area where they're not supposed to, and really big lizards that were created by man came up. It's essentially, and Godzilla originally, that's like the biggest thing with Godzilla. Those caught on more than a movie that was genuinely about like, all right, so not that, sorry, kind of, the next one is a little heavier that I want to bring up, but my thing is that Matinee came out not around the same time, if not a little bit after The Sandlot. And The Sandlot was a huge movie for kids, the kids that, that's that audience that you want, right? Like you remember when The Sandlot came out, right, Jeff? Was that one of those movies that you watched over and over and over again?
As a kid, I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
seeing that one. Yeah. Yeah.
And that movie is a huge hit, and that's essentially the same. It's about a bunch of kids getting together, and it's their lives during this particular era, a more innocent age. Quote quotes. Yeah, that's right. The audience can't see me. Like, you know what I mean? Like 50s, 60s. It's the same exact plot, and takes place in the same. It's not the same exact plot, but it's the same feeling. It's that nostalgic. Man, remember when we were kids, and they're going about like obsessed with their own thing, but meanwhile in the background they're hinting at all this other stuff that's going on, like obviously with Matinee, it's the threat of nuclear war with the Russians. And obviously the emotional thing is that his dad is not home, and he may be involved in that. And in The Sandlot, in the background, it's like Smalls is like, he had to move from this one area to this other town due to like an economic disadvantage. And he's like, there's like in the background, the parents are like, as long as he's out having fun with it, he's like, they're trying to get him out from being around like what the adults are going through. These movies are usually focused on the kids. Although this one gets a lot of its humor, and this is what I think went over the heads of a lot of the kids that I think this movie was trying to market. Because if they were trying to market this to adults who feel this way, like they missed the ball because people weren't going. But the movies within the movies, the black and white ones, like those were really funny. Like with the young I did Dick Smith, that's always in Dante's movies. Like the guy in everyone recognizes him when they see him. Yeah, that movie and the black and white one that he's in, it's so funny. It's so funny. And then I think what was the other one? It was they were making fun of those Disney movies. It's like I'm a shopping cart or something, but they were making fun of
Yes.
those. Like, yeah, they were making fun of
Objects
those.
that
Yeah,
objects that
yeah,
start
yeah,
singing and dancing on
yeah,
the thing.
exactly. So rewatching it again, um, I was kind of struck by how I was like, I couldn't help it. I was like, I forgot about that darker um background, actually, like the whole like the threat of war, and I thought like, what would be the equivalent in something like now, or maybe it would be like that movie, like so the shocky effects, and it would be something equivalent along the lines of like it would be like, what was it like when a group of uh middle schoolers went to go see something like what was that, like what was like one of the what was like a really cheesy, but it's cheesy now, or it was cheesy then, but you just thought it was the coolest thing, but you were like, that came out that was geared toward 13 to 18-year olds around the time the threat of the war in Iraq was about to start. 9/11 has happened. And, we know, like in the background, like, unless you were obviously the country's reeling from it, but movies like Shrek were huge, or movies like what were like the big movies around then? Like, it seems like it would be like that, where it's like these group of kids, well, let's follow their adventures while they're, and it's seemingly like innocent, but everything that they're doing has been affected by this unknown thing that's about to go. and we're going to make it a comedy. We're going to make it a we're going to make it silly. It'd be something like maybe like the one that comes closest to my head is Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, because that was literally the year. I think was that the no, it was like 2003 when that movie came out, 2002, 2003. And even in that movie, they have like a bunch of like, they have the whole thing at the end where it's like, well, we're New Yorkers, you don't mess with us, or all that stuff. But it would like if they were trying to do, it would be like jump forward 30 years or so. It's almost 30. It's almost 30 years since that movie came out, and it would be like, oh, I'm going to make a movie about when I was a teenager and I went to go see Spider-Man with my friends. Oh, and one guy I had a crush on. Well, for me, it would be like I had a crush on this guy, but it could be like, oh, there was this cute girl, and I was, we just wanted to go see this movie with, oh, it's going to be so cool. The effects look neat. And, oh, we're going to be the first ones to see it. It's the premiere in our little town. Oh, man, the web slinger, web slinger. Oh, man, that's great. But then as we're doing it, like, we're ignoring the news that's saying, like, the president of the United States is saying we are about to go invade. It'd be like that. It would be that's what kind of struck me for that being like the chessboard, the like the overall. This is the environment, and these are the characters in this really harmless, sweet adolescent story with some terrific performances. Like John Goodman is still one of the best actors on the planet. He's just anytime he's like
Yeah.
one of those where anytime he's not on screen, I'm like, where's John Goodman? Where is he? And I loved how he dove into that role of that character. And I love that it was a loving homage to William Castle, because I liked those filmmakers like that, the
How
ones who
how do
like,
you, for anybody listening unfamiliar with William Castle, how would you describe William Castle? Like
oh,
just like a
he was
short
a
summary.
short summary. All right, so William Castle was a famous movie producer back in the 40s and 50s. I could get the dates wrong, but it was a while back. It was, and his whole thing was he was a big showman, huge showman. But his thing with movies was that he liked the audience. He liked to scare people. So he would do these gimmicks during his movies where at a particular time, at like a movie called like The Tingler, right? If you're sitting in the theater and you're sitting down, all of a sudden, when a tingler shows up, the seats would zap you. He'd be in the back and he'd press a button, and then your seats would zap you because the tingler was there, and it would just freak out the audience. Or in like House on Haunted Hill, the original one, not the one in the 90s, but the original one, like he would have like fake ghosts flying over the audience at certain moments. Like he was very much like a like a ringleader, like a just a he was like a boyish kind of enthusiasm. Like movies could be more than just sitting down and watching. He's like, I want you to feel the tingler when he shows up. So yeah, it was like basically one of the things where like basically the movies that he did were geared toward teenagers, as they usually are. Most horror movies are. And he was like, well, they've seen everything at this point. They've seen A Creature from the Black Lagoon. They've seen Dracula. But what if, like the idea of like, what if when Dracula bites someone, you feel someone bite you? He had that kind of attitude. And it's just that kind of like, it's pretty innovative. And it's just kind of, I mean, I guess it's a little, I don't think it's that naive, because people are still trying to innovate the interactive theatrical experience now. I just read about how Blumhouse, they're trying out something they have Megan 2.0 coming out, and he did like a kind of like a test experiment on like these folks who came into a screening of the movie, like a early like test screening. And he said, okay, everybody, everyone open your phones. And they're like, open up my phone during the movie. And he's like, no, he's like, open your phone, you'll see there's an app. It's an app with like the Megan character. He's like, click on that, and when you watch the movie, like you'll see something happen on the screen, and then the character of Megan will like DM you, and she'll talk about what's happening. And because he goes, how do we get people back into the theater? And right now it seems to be interactions, like with that new Minecraft movie. Right now the big thing is that they're saying kids are like throwing popcorn at the screen, or I haven't seen the movie, but they're like apparently flipping out when they go in, and people go to do that. Same with like with Wicked last year. People would go in and they would sing along with the movie in the theater because they wanted to go be around people and do that. And so apparently at the folks at Blumhouse, Jason Blum was kind of like, he's like, well, Megan's all about technology. What if? And people are already on their phones anyway. When you go to movie theaters, people are already on the phones. He's like, what if the movie talks back to you? But apparently the test didn't go that well because people were like, well, I'd rather watch the movie than just than just read the thing. But in a way, like I didn't mean to go on that long about Jason Blum, but that kind of thinking, is kind of like the way that William Castle was, and the way that John. Oh my God, why am I blanking on him? I've been talking so much.
You mentioned real quick.
Uh,
I want to
yeah,
say Ed Wood. Can you speak a little bit about Ed Wood? You mentioned his name earlier too.
yeah, because Ed Wood was another one who was. I mean, he didn't have as much access as like a William Castle, but he was a scrappy, innovative filmmaker, who had no respect during his day, but managed to not only scrape whatever money he needed to make the movies that were pure and from the heart, and he stopped at nothing to do them, and they were the worst movies that you've ever seen. But the movie that Tim Burton directed that came out not that long after Matinee, probably I think maybe a year or two after, it's the same thing. It's about this filmmaker about these schlocky movies from the 50s, but it's about the love that you can look at that movie from one way. You could look at it as someone who's like, you're following someone who's passionate about their what their endeavor is, and they will stop at nothing to achieve it. If you happen to like filmmaking and schlocky sci-fi, and if that touches your heart, then that makes the movie better. But if you just like an underdog story, then you'll like that movie. If you like Rocky, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't like Ed Wood. It's the same thing. Against all odds, he goes at it, and like Rocky, he doesn't win at the end, but he's still like, I did it though. Um, but yeah, but the reason I mentioned Ed Wood earlier is because it touches on a particular nostalgia for at the time. It's not like I don't want to call it it's like a niche audience. Like no one like both of those movies, like audiences didn't really go see them. Critics loved them, and then maybe a generation later, like it was discovered by younger, like film nerds, or just whether they caught it on like cable or wherever. But I link Matinee and Ed Wood in those same. They're kind of like the same genre. That you know what I mean? Like I hope that I
Yeah,
articulated that well enough.
yeah.
But I've talked enough. How about you? What do you think? Tell me about your thoughts about the movie.
I'm struck by the rhythm of the film. It's like the dialogue, the timing in the scenes, like it doesn't waste any time. There's always something funny in this in a scene, or there's some kind of suspense. It's
Yeah,
cross-cutting back and forth between different characters, and of course the larger Cuban Missile Crisis is in the background too. And it never really like slows down or feels like the story's dragging out, or it's really just kind of getting boring. Like there's never a boring moment. And
you like the irreverence? Are you a Joe Dante fan?
I like
You
some of
like
his
Gremlins?
stuff. Yeah, I appreciate his kind of satirical and usually unpredictable style of comedy. You're not really sure like how far he's going to go, or what will the ending be. The way the theater in Matinee, the way like the theater itself. I
Yeah,
mean, hopefully people go out and some find the movie somehow. Unfortunately,
it's on Prime. You can rent it
is it
on
on
Prime.
Prime now?
Yeah, you can buy it on Prime. It's like
All right.
$4. Yeah.
But is that the only way? Is it streaming anywhere
That's the
else?
only way. That's the only way that I think that's the only way it was when I looked it up. But my
Wow.
roommate had a copy. She had a copy of the.
So the way the theater towards the end of the movie, the way
Yeah,
the theater itself, the
yeah, it becomes
walls
a part of
like
it. Yeah,
it's basically breaking apart, the balconies coming apart,
yeah,
and that was such a beautiful way to spend the last like seemed like 15 minutes of the movie, or
The,
10 minutes of
yeah,
the
the
movie.
like
Like it's just
the balcony, yeah, balcony's coming down, and it's like,
that was awesome.
yeah, yeah.
That kind of reminded me of, this isn't totally on topic, but you have like these old industrial music bands, rock bands that they're playing a show, and like they're actually destroying the stage with like real,
Oh, they just did it, yeah,
like
yeah,
tools like drills and hammers and
yeah,
stuff. And like after the show, the stage is like literally destroyed. Like
yeah,
like nobody's gonna be playing on that stage for a
yeah.
while.
And like, oh, you've been great. Yeah, they're like flipping you off while they're doing it too. Like,
You
you paid
reminded me of
money.
that. It was
Yeah,
that level of like it blurs the line between entertainment and like, well, I might need to get out. I should get out of
yeah,
here. Like, what's going on?
yeah. Yeah, well, it's more like, is this part of the show? Is this what's happening? Oh my, actually, I'll as we're still talking, there was a movie. So I watched this with my roommate because I said, hey, Jeff wants to do matinee. We'll talk about that one. And there's a horror movie that we watched afterwards. I can't remember the name of it though, but it'll probably hit me as I'm describing, and I'll be really quick. But the
Yeah.
premise is it's about it takes place at a film school. Oh no, I'm sorry, an abandoned it's like a no, it's a film school, and they said they were in this town they were about to close the one local movie theater. These film people are like, no, we need to show them, like, we'll just put our money into it, and we'll just open up this tiny theater that shows obscure little movies. And then as they're putting together everything, and this man shows up with a bunch of different film reels, these old film reels, and he's like, I have these obscure movies that no one's ever seen before.
Wow.
And then and they're setting up the whole, and he shows this one movie, and it's a bunch of like obscure. Keep in mind, this is like, I think, the late '80s when this came out, so this is before The Ring. But the film they're looking at are these strange images that make no sense, and it's like a big eyeball that looks at them.
Wow.
And then basically they find out that it's a haunted tape, and it releases this malevolent being into this theater. So on the premiere, they want to show. They're like, "Oh, get rid of that movie. That was awful. We can't show that to the crowd on opening day. Let's show them this." Like, they find this cheesy monster movie with like big bugs. It's like about a big mosquito or something. And they're like, "Okay, we'll play that because it's like old school. We can kind of we can laugh at it, but have like the way, like when you go to like the Alamo Draft House or something, and you kind of laugh at these kind of quiche kind of movies." And they don't know that the being is now using all of their props that they've made to like scare the audience, and they're like killing all the people with it. And it's crazy, crazy horror movie. It was actually really, really fun. If I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately, and I don't want to like look it up while I'm talking to you, because I just don't want to do that. But if anyone listening, if they recognize that premise, if they can find it, it's a really, really entertaining movie.
Huh.
I think it's called like, it's not called like Final Cut or something. It has like a name where you would go like, of course that's the name of that movie. I just
You
want to get
know,
more of your like thoughts. What do you
yeah.
think about the childhood aspect of the, like, did it make you think about like, oh, because you've always been a film guy, and like, did it make you, I mean, like when you would hang out with your friends back in the day and maybe go see, like, did it give you like a sense of, obviously not nostalgia because you weren't a kid when the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on, but like the human aspect of it, like, what did you think about it? Because you were just talking about, you mainly were mentioning the editing and how there's no
Yeah.
fat in the movie.
For me, it was very like the innocence of, I don't know, when you're that young and the way you take in the world. Like, I don't know. I remember just like playing outside as a kid, going to movies too with friends. But like, I guess it seems like as a person ages, it's like inevitable you're gonna look back and be like, oh yeah, when I was younger, things were simpler, and you kind of yearn for that. So there was some of that feeling, like the simpler times, things seem less complicated. The world maybe didn't seem as scary. Um, I'm sure if I did grow up during the Cuban Missile Crisis, I would have felt like that was scary, probably. Certainly 9/11 was scary to be alive,
Yes.
during that time period. And then afterwards, maybe if this movie came out after 9/11, it would have felt different or connected. It maybe was too high concept, is my opinion, for 1993. People just maybe didn't really
Oh, I
get
think it
it,
completely
or
works.
I really love Kathy Moriarty in the movie.
He
John
was terrific.
Goodman's,
There you go. John Goodman is always great.
it's
Yes.
John Goodman's partner. Like she's
Yeah.
like kind of his creative partner, romantic partner too,
Yeah.
of course. And just she was so funny, and I loved all her scenes. Oh my God.
Yeah. They bounced off each other really well. They're really,
John
really.
Goodman, John Goodman, as you said earlier, I agree, legend. That guy, the Flintstones movie, I'll also say is another really cool family friendly John Goodman movie, the live action Flintstones movie from the 90s.
You know what's funny is that, and I agree that's one of those that I watched a million times as a kid, and John Goodman, he does a great job in it. I love that he he actually he kind of hated making the movie, and then he actually asked Steven Spielberg. He said, "Please don't, please can I get out of my contract to be in the sequel?" Because he said I don't want like for the rest of my career to hear yabba dabba do at me. And then yeah, and Spielberg obliged them. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, because it's funny, like he has such a huge filmography, and but I often will forget. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. A whole generation knows him as Fred Flintstone. There's like all these people who know him from the Coen Brothers movies and like years
Yeah,
ago. They're like, oh wait, isn't he the Yabba Dabba Doo guy? He like skateboarded down the back of that dinosaur. Oh man, that guy. What's he doing?
Roseanne.
Yeah,
I grew
Roseanne
up.
is
I
Roseanne.
grew
Yeah,
up
Roseanne.
as a
Yeah,
kid. I grew up. I wish to watch Roseanne once in a while be on TV. I thought it was funny. John
yeah.
Goodman was funny on the show. For me, Matinee the movie, it's kind of like the podcast. It gets into like, well, what is appropriate for teenagers to watch in the movie Matinee? There's the people that pick it, and they're
Yeah,
saying,
there's
no, don't
the
watch the
morality.
movie. Like that was really fascinating. I was struck by those scenes too.
Well, that's the morality police, and that was them commenting on the code that they used to have before there were real ratings for movies. It was like people were like they were like, what's appropriate for you can't smoke, you can't do this, you can't do yeah, and they were yeah yeah the moral majority like kind of thing yeah, and they were completely yeah like Dante was kind of lambasting that kind of thing. Like you can tell like he loves sticking it to that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I did like how it was like John Goodman was having actors of his pretend to do it. It reminded me of like when Kevin Smith like he went out and protested the Dogma movie to make sure he knew that there was a bunch of like a church group protesting Dogma, and he knew the news would be there, so he went with a sign protesting his own movie just to kind of get yeah, it was really funny.
You mentioned earlier there. I mean, there's so many ironies too that the movie Matinee reminds me of, and like kind of catch 22 things. Like you reminded me earlier that horror movies are usually marketed to teenagers, and a lot of horror movies are rated R.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you feel about the rating system and just like what's appropriate and like, do you have any particular
Oh well,
thoughts?
right now, I think the rating system it's kind of like a moot point at this point because you can yeah, you know what I mean. It doesn't really matter right now. Although actually, you know what? No, let me take that back. Right now, surprisingly, there is, and these are with horror movies. There is a there's an audience now, a young audience for unrated movies. That's how the Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3 were huge hits. Those are unrated movies. Um I don't know this new one that I think it's next week, the Clown in a Cornfield. I think that's unrated, or it may be R. I can't remember. And then I know that there is a couple years ago they filmed a remake of Toxic Avenger, and it stars Peter Dinklage. and it's been on the shelf for 2 years because it's unabashedly a messed up movie. And so now I think it's Screambox in association with bloodydisgusting.com, they're releasing it theatrically as unrated, because that was the thing with Terrifier 2, unrated movie, uh minuscule budget, and it became a, I think, like a $8 million movie, which was huge for them through word of mouth. It was like it because it was a gimmick. It was what they would say was like someone saw someone vomiting and passing out in the lobby after seeing the movie and filmed it with their phone and kind of posted it out on whatever with like hashtag Terrifier 2, and it became this dare. It became this dare for people to go, and then they would either go see it or they'd bring their friends and come see it with them. So teenagers, there's always a market, and this is someone as someone who likes to write horror and direct, and like this is the market. It's always been that way for teenagers. Like, so when I was a teenager, usually like I definitely don't know how it is now, but anytime you go in, there's going to be the box office doubles because the parents have buy the tickets for mom, dad, please, please, especially in the suburbs. Like, mom, dad, please, 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 we got to see it. If we don't see it, everyone else in school will see it. Tommy's gone or whatever. They're seeing it. Please, please, please. I'll be the no one will care yet. And it's like, because when I was a when I was when I was a teen, it was like that horror like resurgence after like the Scream came out. Then it was all of a sudden it was like, I Know What You Did Last Summer and all this. And these are like R-rated movies, language is like all over the place. And you would figure out a way to get your parents to essentially, and the parents would just pay the ticket prices, and they just could, the parents don't have to watch the movie with you. They have to be there when the kids buy the tickets. They're like, oh my God, Sam wants to go see Scream 2.5 or whatever. And but you know what? He got his job at the mall and he saved up his money. So, he shows up at the theater like, listen, I'm the parent, here's my ID. They're good to go. And then, all right, thanks, mom. I'll be come back 2 hours later to pick me up, take me home. If I'm not too scared, mom's like, whatever, it just leaves. And then a lot of those that money came from teenagers with disposable income. And teenagers love to be scared. Also date movies. You want to bring a date and you want to show that you're not too scared. I mean, I don't know if that applies now, but I'm just not right now. It seems like people just like to be. When I saw Terrifier 2 and 3, they were like, ew, ew, ew. But usually, whenever I see them, and I don't see that many movies now that are kind of horror movies that are kind of catered to teenagers, they just talk throughout the whole thing. This is just where I am in New York. I don't want to generalize, but it's more like they're kind of just tuned out and checking out their phones until like something crazy happens on the screen. And they're like, oh, okay, oh man, that was cool. Then they text about what they just saw. Or they'll just call, or sometimes they just call their friend and just talk about what they saw. So maybe that's probably where Jason Blum was like, he's like, I can't keep making all these. Does he doesn't do the Conjuring ones. He does, but he's like every movie I go to, people are on their phone. So what if the phone just talked to them? Brilliant idea, Jason. Brilliant idea. But no, but the horror. It's always been about a lot of them are usually catered to younger people, usually teenagers. Because you're at that stage in your life where you're not sure about things. So you're kind of vulnerable as an audience member. You're not sure about things. You think you know everything, and there's going to be something out there that will take care of you. Whether it's you can throw in the moral stuff that everyone says about like the Friday the 13th. Like if you do drugs and have sex, you're going to get it. But then usually they kind of follow a formula. There's no adult supervision whatsoever. There are these teenagers out there. They think they know everything. They usually kind of cause the problem. Then a bunch of them die, and the audience cheers them when they die. And then the teenager they vanquish the malevolent threat. And then usually there's like a clue at the end, like they're not going to be back, or they will be back, or or not. But that's always been a kind of most horror movies tend to focus on teenagers, or college age students. As I've gotten older, the movies that I like that are the horror movies that I really like, love, and the ones that stay with me are about people like around my age now. You know what I mean? Like, like The Substance I thought was a terrific horror movie, and that's about a woman dealing with like age and her younger counterpart. Not only just her counterpart, but her actual like a version of her. And I thought that was a really interesting take on a horror movie. But at the same time, you can wait a couple months and something like Hard Eyes comes out, which is about a like a young couple and they're being chased by a slasher.
What about
Hmm?
American Innocence? Is there any left?
Well, not after. Well, Vietnam was not that long after this, and we saw, yeah, yeah. So, kind of American Innocence. You saw the rest of the '60s and where this movies changed in like the '70s, in the late '60s and the '70s after America. Yeah, like Like this is all before Watergate and Vietnam. That era that this movie takes place in. And American innocence hasn't been the same with. We've all been cynical of our government, especially considering now. And even back then, when these movies that say stuff like this, where they're like, America was very innocent back then in the '50s up to the '60s. I'm like, it depends on what kind of American you were. Let's be honest. If you were a particular color in a particular area of the country, maybe it was that kind of innocent thing, but no, for a lot of people, that wasn't the case. But no, no, it is that kind of the way that movie is that Leave It to Beaver kind of era that you kind of grew up, well, not grew up on, but that they try to say like this is the ideal America. This is the one we want to protect. And then what if, and there's this lingering threat out there. This movie would be interesting if it was kind of from a similar perspective, but if it was from like, I don't know, a black or a Italian kid or a Asian kid, you know, it's not that long after World War II. From an Asian perspective, from this would be interesting. It's
Yeah.
not that long after the internment camps, and it's like, oh well, let's go see Mant. You know what I mean? It would be a completely different take. It would be a completely different perspective for a movie like this. Basically, what these characters in this movie is what it feels. I imagine what it feels like for the 13 and 15-year olds who are going to go see Minecraft with their friends, and their whole lives are consumed by their like social media stuff and their friendships through that and whatever little squabbles they have. Meanwhile, they're either oblivious or they have they have a little acknowledgement about the fact that there are two huge wars going on. And this is stuff and it like they're just and this is constantly in the news. And they're like, I would set it in I would set it in something like maybe New York City. I mean, obviously, Matinee works better in a small, like a military base in a small town in Florida. That kind of because that's right. It's close. And the dad's a Navy, like the dad's a Navy guy. Um, for this would be something like I would have it in New York with these kids who just don't. They're just focused on their own stuff but anyone they run across, they like it would be like I would do like tracking shots. They don't see people with protest signs talking about something. They don't care about. They don't notice like newspapers and all that. There's this whole other thing, but to them like their whole thing is that escapism. They go into this theater because they want to be one of the first to see this movie based on a game that they've been playing their whole entire lives, and they can't wait for that what's it called the chicken jockey to show up so they can just throw all this they can just destroy like let out whatever frustrations are out in their system, yeah, or whatever. That would be the closest thing that I could in a weird parallel to this movie.
Threat of
It'll be
nuclear
weird.
war, right? The
It'll
threat
be
of
a
nuclear war is
threat of nuclear war, but
still
you
a
can throw
thing.
popcorn at the screen, huge. Everyone will flock to it. It'll
It's
make
still a
it'll make
thing.
less. It'll make less money than Matinee did, but no, it'll be on streaming. It'll be on like Tubi or something. You wonder those Tubi movies.
Yeah. It's still you know, has much changed since then, like, or what?
Well, obviously the world has changed. Life is not like it was like in 1993. But if you want to get deep or philosophical, humanity really doesn't change at all if you think about it. But you know what? There's always going to be an external threat, but we always love escapism. That's what it seems like the movie's going to be. And maybe, yeah. And then once you take your eyes, that like Ebert, essentially that's what the last sentence in this and the Ebert's review is like, once you take your eyes off the screen and the fantasy and you go out in your face with the real world, that innocence is lost. But you'll always remember those moments. You don't have anything like, all right, so I feel like I really took a lot out of this movie. And I honestly don't get a sense that you got like, what did you get out of this movie? Other than
It was
it's
funny. I laughed quite a bit. It was very funny. I enjoyed most of the jokes. The poetry kid, I cracked up at him. I thought you were going to mention the poetry kid earlier. That was one character I thought. I mean, he's obviously inspired by James Dean and like that juvenile delinquent 1950s
I'm
thing.
gonna be honest.
And
I forgot he was in the movie. I watched it 3 weeks ago. I watched it 3 weeks ago.
the guy loves poetry and he
Yeah.
recites it here and there. That was like really
He's like
funny.
okay, so they were making fun
That
of
was really funny.
pretentious. Okay, got it.
I think it's a very entertaining film. I saw it twice. I laughed. I mean, I laughed both times. It was still funny. I think it's a very entertaining film that actually does touch on, deeper things. It's not just escapism, but um,
It's also a good
yeah.
take on just I like how it's just a good take on showmanship, just show business.
Yes.
Just like it's like I like they show like all the nuts and bolts and the kind of personality you have to just spend so much time to come up with something that will honestly provide folks with maybe just an hour or so of entertainment. But you want to make sure it's the best thing that,
Yeah.
you and I went to school for it, where we've all been on those sets or like labored over editing or sat through, you've gone through all the craziness that it takes to get this stuff off the ground. And you're like, why are we doing this? Like, this is insane. You have to be kind of insane to do it.
The
And then once
deeper,
you do something that works and you see like it actually, then you're like, oh yeah, and you're like, oh man, and then you try to go do it all over again. Um, you know, everyone has that thing. Like chefs are the same way. Cooks do it. People who like, I don't know, relay cars. All my friends are like artist types, and so I'm
the
just like everything I.
deeper for me, you wanted me to talk more. So the deeper stuff for
Yeah,
me was
please do.
like making a living. I mean, John Goodman's character, Lawrence Woolsey, he's
Yeah,
trying to make a living he's trying to make a living from being a filmmaker, having these screenings of his films, being a showman, being a host, being this kind of almost like a carnival type of a guy, back to that kind of a personality, that energy. So it reminded me of like how do we as artists, as you just said, make a living from our art, or is that really more of a fantasy and it's just luck and it's you got to just get a square job or go get a regular job and support your art on the side like that. It
well,
made me think about that stuff too.
with Goodman's character was also he was trying to reclaim his older glory. He's putting everything out for grabs because he's essentially a washed up B movie guy. He has no respect outside of a small handful of, and so his whole thing is like, this is like my chance to relive my glory days. He's essentially chasing the past while the future is happening right around him. If you want to, yeah, really just layered on a little thick, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just the like this was not an easy movie for them to make. So it's when you see how well made it is, like it seemed like they were kind of flying by the handle,
I
like doing
also
this. Yeah,
I also want to mention the music, the soundtrack,
yeah, Jerry Goldsmith. Yeah,
the soundtrack
beautiful.
too. They
Yeah.
have like the platters and
Oh,
these old
yeah,
school
that's right. Yeah, it's it
songs.
kind of
I
it was very
loved it.
it kind of felt like, I know it's different eras of music, but it actually no, maybe not. It kind of felt like American Graffiti a little bit.
The
Yeah, where the
soundtrack.
soundtrack, yeah, the
Yes.
soundtrack is kind of like, yeah, it's a character. You're right. You're right.
Love
Completely forgot
that.
about
I love that part of it. To me, it was just the right balance of Goldsmith's like, classical kind of instrumental orchestral score, and then
that.
like bringing in these pop hits from American radio, 50s, 60s, kind of like really dancey, upbeat stuff. I love that.
Yeah, rewatching it, I forgot that I was like, yeah, no one hits those strings quite like you, Goldsmith. Like some of his like, 'cause I'm a big fan of the probably one of my favorite, well, not my favorite score, but one of my favorites is his score for the theme for Basic Instinct. That's just, I think that's the beautiful piece of music. What do you ever think about the movie? I'm just kind of like, it just kind of promises like you're in for a treat when you hear this thing. Yeah, and may you rest in peace.
I appreciated on the theater near the marquee, there was also a sign that said "Fight Pay TV." Did you catch that?
Oh, I didn't catch that. Ah, there you go. And that's
I
TV
thought
at
that
its
was really
yeah,
interesting. I thought that was
exact.
very interesting.
And TV was at its adolescence at that point, in that era, at that time. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I didn't catch that. Okay.
I mean, it reminded me of like how, as we kind of touched on earlier, streaming has become for a lot of people, that's the way they'll experience a movie. Maybe they don't go to the movies as much, or it's like more of a once a year, couple times a year special screening kind of a thing. Otherwise, they're going to watch it at home.
Yeah. And then also just in terms of pay TV, like, yeah, the last strike was about revenue for streaming. Like that's like the new, yeah, that's the new TV. That's the new TV at this point.
I
I think
want
there's gonna
to,
be,
looking at my notes too, I want to say John Sayles has an acting role in Matinee, and
yeah,
he's
that's right.
also an
Yes.
accomplished director.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. There you go. I think that was one of those like I think that was like a Dante, like I wonder if he and Dante are friends or something. He was like, hey
Probably,
man, yeah.
probably.
What was the last Joe Dante movie? Was it that Looney Tunes movie?
I'm not
It was
sure.
like, I think there was like there was a Looney Tunes movie that I think was the last one he did that I can
He
remember.
he has like three movies it says upcoming: Labyrinthus, Little Shop of Halloween Horrors, and The Man with Kaleidoscope Eyes. They're all in pre-production as him as director. He did Nightmare Cinema, the segment Mirari. He directed that segment from Nightmare Cinema, the maybe it's like an anthology
Yeah, it
film.
sounds like yeah.
And then he did 10 episodes of Hawaii Five-O, 2011 to 2017. Did two episodes of Salem, 2015 to 16. One episode of MacGyver, 2016.
Oh, all the
So,
new ones. Oh, cool. So he's doing. Oh, that's all right. Brother, get that money,
um,
that TV money.
so he was busy doing TV stuff, it looks like, for a while. Yeah.
What's this? All right. My favorite is actually my favorite is um Gremlin. That's my favorite. But I just saw Inner Space for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I'm surprised I'd never seen it before.
Oh, wow.
And obviously I like the Howling. But
Mm,
Inner Space was just a really wacky. Have you seen that? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I don't know if I've
And,
seen that one.
oh, it's with Martin Short and why am I blank? Come
Dennis
on.
Quaid.
Dennis Quaid. Yeah,
Meg
yeah. It's a
Ryan.
really, really Meg Ryan. Yep, yeah. It's a
Oh,
really
I'll,
funny
I'll
movie.
put that, I'll try to check that one out. I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, you should. Yeah, I think you'll love it.
Gremlins 2, I remember having a good time with that one. Matinee though, I don't know. I overall maybe the story in Matinee is what I've liked so far the most from his movies, because the story is just so, for me, it's fascinating, and it's just really suspenseful the way it just keeps cross-cutting, and
Yeah.
the historical moment all the characters share. I just felt more, from that one. And John Goodman really, he's just
He's
outstanding
John
in
Goodman.
film.
Yeah, he's John Goodman. He's
Outstanding.
always something. Yeah.
I was looking at John Goodman and
Yeah.
his films. He is going to be in an Alejandro Inarritu film that is also
Oh,
going
the
to have
one?
Tom Cruise in it and a bunch of people.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
back to Matinee. It's a very unique film.
I'd like to see. I'd like to see Inarritu's back then. That'd be interesting.
See him make a family-friendly movie too.
You know what? I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. All 3 hours of it. All 3 hours with their constant oneers and their pretentious cutaways to like like yeah. I would love it, yeah.
I recently watched Attack of the 50-Foot Woman from the 50s, that one of the movies
Okay,
that
yeah.
influenced Matinee.
Yeah, of course.
I'd never
There
seen
was a
it.
remake in the 70s. There was like a remake in the 70s or something too. But what'd you think? What'd you think about
It
the
was
one with
cool. It was cool and it was funny and it was also kind of terrifying, like the way it was basically a husband and wife, and the husband's cheating on the wife, and then when she mutates and grows to be a giant, then she goes after looking for the husband through the town. Like
yeah,
it was
that's great.
it was a
I
trip.
like that when I was a kid, I liked stuff like them with the big ants.
Yeah.
I like there was one I can't remember what it was called, but it was like these people who drove by this road, this big like it looked like it had tentacles and a big eye, and it would just pass them on the. I remember that scared me. But I was more of a like the Universal monsters and stuff because that there was a library on base because I grew up on military base, and at the library they had like all these old VHSs of these classic black and white movies, and my dad would be the one. He would be like, "Oh, you got to check out this one. You got to check out that one," and just pop them in, and just I loved it. Like like you can tell you're like, yeah, it's a set, and it's even as a kid, I'm like, they're not really in a castle, but once you don't care. At some point, you just kind of buy into it, and I like the way that feels. It's just like we're all having a good time here. We're all just. It was only until I got a little older, but I started seeing some of those black and white horror flicks that are a little more not obscure, but like they had like a subtext that was a little darker, like stuff like Black Cat and like those things where you're just like, oh, this is actually pretty scary. It's not like I want to suck your blood. It's like, yo, do not go down, don't go down this alley. But anything where they're like, oh, what if they're like, well, what if this little thing, this little mouse becomes big and it wants to eat people? Yes, give me that one. Give me that one. Especially when I get up crazy, like Night of the Lepus, which is about the big killer rabbits,
Yeah.
or obviously the original Fly. I thought the original
Yeah.
Fly.
That's the original
I,
body horror, right? The
yeah, the
fly, the
Fly.
old
I
the
think
old
that's
fly.
the old one from the 50s. That's one. Well, I don't know. The Cronenberg one was a little more like whoa, but the original one I thought was more. It's such a silly movie, but it it genuinely like creeps me out that image when he's on the web and his head is just screaming help me and that big spider's coming that just stays with you. That's just like
Really?
yeah and his friend shows mercy by smashing the two of them with a brick. Yeah, just like the idea of like this is the way the guy was like. I mean, it's such an absurd image, this little fly with a human head and this big fake spiders coming at him and he's just screaming, and it's just like I was like, oh god, like good thing his friends showed up because that would have been a really bad. It's a horrible death. Yeah, yeah,
What
it was
about
mercy.
arachnophobia? Did
Yeah,
arachnophobia
so no
freak you
arachnophobia.
out?
So when I was a kid and I saw arachnophobia, that freaked me out because it was just because I genuinely think that's a scary movie, and I happen to be a little. I'm one of those where I used to be scared of spiders, but I'm the type where if I turn and there's one there, I will jump back at first just because like they're just the way they look is just amazing. But I think they're amazing animals. And the moment I see one, I'm perfectly fine. I'm just like, oh. With arachnophobia though, I was a little kid. And the way that it was done, like it was so John Goodman, he's in that too. And it just I remember it scared me a lot as a kid, but I watched when I watched it, did I see it as a I saw it not that long ago. I don't know how I saw it, but I just remember it made me laugh so because it's so funny. It's really funny, and and it's that it's in that it's that Amblin formula. Like you can tell, like it has like, and yeah, I think Frank Marshall directed it. He also did Congo and produced all those Spielberg movies. Like it has that Amblin touch to it. It's like, the first act this happens, the second act this, the third, and it has all those like sequences, but the moment in the third act, which is really when it's Jeff Daniels versus that the main bad guy spider, and it just like keeps escalating. Like Jeff Goldblum is not Jeff Goldblum, Jeff Daniels is like the spider's like jumping at him. He's like Jeff Daniels burns up all of its babies, and now it jumps it, and now it's trying to bite him, and it's like crawling toward him slowly. And so he manages to like flip this piece of wood, and it sets the spider on fire and pins it to the wall. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm safe." And he's trying to go, and then the spider, because spiders don't do this at all. This spider, just for the last scare, comes jumping out of the fire right at his face, and then I think John Goodman like shoots it with the thing and saves him at the last moment. It's like such a like it's like the audience like claps, it's like one of those like in Jaws, like Schmar, you son of a, and he blows up the shark. It's like one of those like it's like, okay, you got it. It's like, the audience can breathe a sigh of relief. The bad spider is dead.
Yeah.
We can all go home and we can go like, oh, did you see that movie? Yeah. You want to go tell your friends to go see it. Yeah. It's such a like early like 90s one of those checklist kind of 90s thriller kind of things where it's scary for the kids, but it's not too scary. It's not gory. There's no sex whatsoever. There's no, yeah, it's just like, oh, the town is attacked by spiders. Same with stuff like Gremlins. Suburban, like bad things happen in the suburbs, and good thing there's this hero. There's this guy here, and he saves everybody. No one listens to him at first. He usually has to overcome his fear. Like Jaws, he's afraid of water.
Mm.
Arachnophobia, he's afraid of spiders. You know.
The movie Matinee also reminds me of just, the way filmmakers, whatever their budget, try to hype their movie. Like
Yeah.
with Matinee, they have the cardboard cutout in front of the theater, we're right in front, people are walking. They
Yeah.
have like tentacles coming around the building in the front. Like
Yeah.
there's,
Eye
really
catching.
trying to hype it,
Yeah.
and
What?
it
Yeah. You
reminded
want
me
people
of
to go
all
like,
that.
what? You want people to go, what is that? Oh, what is that over there? What is this? It's the best thing you've ever. What do you all do? Just come in, come check it out. Comes out next week. Next week, get a ticket. You don't want to be left out. Yeah. Yeah. Just sell, 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 sell. No,
And
yeah,
then,
it's like
and
he may as well
also,
have had like he may have had one of those like bull horns. Like he reminds me of like in King Kong, the producer in King Kong, the one who gets everybody to Skull Island. He's like, all right, let me tell you something. I've heard about this Kong. We need to go there and film. He said, yeah. And he doesn't care that everyone else is getting eaten and killed. Not only does he get filmed, he's like, let's kidnap it. Let's kidnap the yeah, yeah. Yeah, that kind of like throw back to that kind of why am I blanking? The famous Carnival Barker, the one who was like, come see the bearded woman. Hugh Jackman played him in that movie recently. Part of Barnum. Barnum,
P.T.
yeah. Yeah,
Barnum.
like yeah, there you go, yeah. Like the ultimate one.
Oh, there's a scene where one of the high schoolers talks about less advantaged students in the South of the US and how what's happening is unfair to these students related to the buses and segregation. And she voices this feeling to one of the teachers. Do you remember that moment?
No, what they do actually address segregation going on in
Yeah.
this movie. Okay.
There's a
How
moment
long?
where one of the
What is it?
female high school students talks about it. Yeah.
Did it feel? Because I don't remember that part at all. Did it feel genuine, or did it feel like, oh, if we're setting this movie in 1961, or was it 61 or 62?
62,
They're
I
like,
think.
we're, they're like, if we're setting this movie and it's 1993 when we're making the movie, and this thing is taking place in the 60s, early 60s. I guess at some point, and everyone in the cast is white. They're like, oh, maybe at some point we should address that there is, there's segregation going on.
It's
Okay,
the
we got that.
same.
Did it feel like they were just kind of like, okay, we acknowledged it, we got out of the way, let's move on?
It felt genuine because the character that says it also gets in trouble earlier in the movie during the, you know, drill of like, oh, pretend like we're under attack. What are we going to do? We're going to like crouch down, put our
Oh, she
hands over
refuses
our
to.
head.
Yeah,
She's like,
she
I don't want to
refuses to.
do it. She's
Yeah,
like,
that's
this is
right.
pointless. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense. I don't want to do it. And then she gets in trouble at the school. It's
yeah.
the same character that, later on has the scene where
So
she
she's progressive. She questions authority and
she
questions what's going
does.
on.
She
Yeah.
does. That's part of her character in the film. Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember
Yeah.
that part at all. Okay. What else? What else
So
do you have?
I have the Fallout shelter.
The Fallout shelter.
There's a Fallout shelter at the end of the movie, you remember?
I remember the theater collapsing at the end of the theater, and then is that like I remember there was a movie. Are you talking about the movie within the movie?
No,
You're talking
like
about
there's that Fallout shelter where the teenagers get trapped in for a period of time. Remember?
oh, because it's during. Oh, it is during the. No, I don't.
They think
No.
they think that remember everybody in the theater thinks that like the attack is happening, like the US is
Yeah.
being attacked, and like the guy activates his fallout shelter and somehow these teenagers get trapped in it by accident.
Oh, and they're stuck there. Oh,
And they
okay.
get
I don't
stuck
remember that.
inside of
Yeah.
it.
Gotcha. Sorry, it's a little bit's coming back, man. 3 weeks ago.
Did you watch
3 weeks
this movie?
ago. 3 weeks ago. We were supposed to talk about it 3 weeks ago. Yeah. After Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. We were supposed to watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang first. And you were like, how about this? You gave me that list. And I said, okay, matinee. Watch it with my roommate.
Yeah.
And then we had to keep pushing this back. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
coming
So I
back
didn't
to
watch
you?
it again. But usually when I read, no, but usually when I talk to you about these things, I just go by what I remember.
All
Yeah.
right.
And then,
It's okay.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just kidding with you. 1993. What else came out in 93? Do you think that probably also helped to eclipse this movie at the time? Do you
Oh,
remember?
there was one with some dinosaurs. The big dinosaur movie. Yeah. And there was that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that came out against the Last Action Hero as well. Those are the two
Oh,
movies from '93 I remember. Yeah.
oh,
I think Schindler's List came out, or maybe Schindler's List also. Well, I didn't see Schindler's List as a kid. Yeah,
hmm.
but I think that came out in '93. Because '94 I remember
Oh,
was Forrest Gump and like Pulp Fiction and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
'93 was like Jurassic Park. Yeah, Jurassic Park and Last Action Hero will, and this small little movie over here. And then I think Schindler's List. Schindler's List, the story I always have about Schindler's List was that I think it came out in '93 because he
yeah.
filmed like he shot like them simultaneously. He did Jurassic Park and then immediately went to the Schindler's List.
Wow.
So he like literally like so while they were doing the editing and all the post stuff for Jurassic Park, he was shooting Schindler's List. And so after spending all day filming these horrific sequences, he would, get on his like at the time, like it was like a portable like monitor. Like now it would be like an iPad or something, but back then it wasn't that. So that way he could like look at ILM and they'd show him like the dinosaurs are looking like and like it's like early CG and stuff. And then or like John Williams would send him like the music and stuff that they'd have and he said it was like at he said it was one of the most bizarre things because the last thing he wanted to see, like, can you imagine that day? Like, this is what I always imagine to be like. It's like 12 or 14 hours of filming, like scenes in Auschwitz or like the taking of it, or like like these horrible scenes where these Jewish ghettos are being like bombed, people are getting shot in the back of the head and all that. And Spielberg's shooting it like documentary style, and he's like getting really emotional, and then it's like okay, he's like taking the car back to the hotel, and so he's like clicking on the like Dan Mirren or whatever at ILM. He's like Dan's like, hey Steve, how you doing? I just had the most horrible day. It's just So what do you guys got? Okay, I was like, I just filmed this scene with this little girl. This guy, he puts on a Nazi outfit to avoid being shot. He just watched his whole family get shot, and it's in this. Okay, Steve. Well, here's what we're thinking about the Raptors sounded like. And Spielberg's just like he's like in tears, and he's like the last thing he wants to hear are these. He's like the last thing he cares about are dinosaurs. The last thing he cares about are dinosaurs. So I think the movies came out around the same time because after Jurassic Park came out, I was 8, so of course I'm like, who is this? What the hell is what's Steven Spielberg? What the hell is that? And my dad's like, oh, he directed, and he proceeds to list all these movies that I grew up on, because I was 8. So I was like, oh yeah, E.T. I was like, oh my God, he does all Jaws, Indiana Jones. He does all these fun movies. And then I see the preview for his next one, and it's like Schindler's List coming by Steven. And I was just like, oh wow, the guy who brought that. And so when it came out on the VHS, remember it was like two tapes. I remember it kept trying to rent it, and my parents were like, no, you can't rent that one. You can't watch it because they knew what it was about, but I was too young to know. But I just looked at the big box with the two VHS tapes, and I saw that the movie was 3 hours, and I thought it would be 3 hours of fun because it was directed by Steven Spielberg. I was like, oh, I bet it's gonna have aliens and dinosaurs, and it's gonna be fun. It's 3 hours of that. But my parents won't let me rent it. I wonder why. Later on, I found out. Like after I watched, I was like, oh, good thing they did show that to me. But yeah, my first. Anytime I think of Schindler's List, instead of the
Wow.
Holocaust, I just think of like wondering why my parents wouldn't let me, why they would rob me of 3 hours of entertaining Spielberg sci-fi nonsense. Yeah, that was my first thing. It's so ridiculous. I don't say
Wow.
that to a lot of certain friends, but yeah, that's what I think of for those. Sorry to go on that tangent, but yeah, 93. You asked what came out in 93, and that's how I know
Yeah.
that those movies.
I also have on
Yeah.
my notes for Matinee, the director of photography has a very impressive list of films. He's done Gremlins, Explorers, The Twilight Zone, the movie, The Howling,
Oh,
quite a
Dante's
few movies. Yeah.
Dante's segment. He did Dante's segment in the Twilight Zone movie. That one with the cornfield one. That's right. That was really cool. It's four
Godzilla.
movies.
I wrote down in my notes Godzilla, and you mentioned Godzilla earlier.
Well, I was talking about like the atomic bombs and stuff. Yeah, but what is Joe Dante? Oh, was he in talks to do the Godzilla movie from
No, I
in
think
the?
when I was watching Matinee,
Oh, you just thought about Godzilla as well.
yeah, because of the monster movies, the trailers that they show and
Gotcha. Okay.
the movie
Yeah.
1941. Matinee
Yeah.
kind of reminded me of that movie.
How the
In
Spielberg movie?
1941, they
Yeah.
think that Japan is attacking the
Yeah.
US,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
kind of similarly, mistakenly, the people in the movie theater think that the missiles
Oh, I see
the
what you.
missiles are fired.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, okay. Just that little bit of a. I was like, one is a complete farce, and then one is a. Okay, my bad. I thought you meant like in terms of. I thought you were comparing the two movies. Oh, okay. I got you.
I mean, just as kind of these like setups and mistaken things for like, major catastrophes that people misinterpret, or could misinterpret easily. The film, it reminds me of doing the podcast and this kind of the whole thing, like we talked about, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, like, what would you show your little cousins, or if you had kids or grandkids, what movies would you show them? Like, it kind of reminds me of those questions. With it being from the 90s so far doing the podcast, I think, picked a lot of 90s movies if you look at the episodes. So I think there's something about 90s family friendly movies, whatever it is about that decade, that maybe they tapped into something where, a lot of them are really good films, and they just, it was the time maybe for that kind of movie, perhaps. And American innocence or childhood innocence or, human innocence, I think Matinee certainly brings up those questions too. Maybe I wonder, is like the duration of childhood in our contemporary world, is it shorter than it was in 1993? Just like when we think of that, that span of time, what is that kind of innocent time in your life before you are aware of like atomic energy or the larger scary things, that can happen to you or in the world? When I watched Matinee, it made me think about that for myself. Like when I went to the first funeral as a kid, or a parent dying, or just family dysfunction, or unstable, having unstable people in your life, and kind of trying to navigate that, like all these kind of things that you pretty much have to learn on your own at a certain point. I mean, people can tell you or try to prepare you, but like until you go through it, it's kind of on you. Because it seems like by the age of 40, most people have some trauma or some horrible stuff has happened to them. It's part of just growing up, getting older, I suppose, too. It's just part of life. And luckily, with the Cuban Missile Crisis, people, didn't have to experience missiles being, fired at them.
There was also terror. Terror. There was absolute terror at the thought of it, at the
Yeah,
threat of it.
it hasn't gone away, and war hasn't certainly gone away, and like the threat of World War III, for example, hasn't gone away, and a lot of the countries that have had these long-term rivalries that go back so many years, it's like it just I like that part. Yes, maybe it feels like, well, that not much has changed in that regard. Like watching Matinee. I don't know. I also wonder, like, well, what does these days? What does give people hope? What do they look forward to? What keeps them going? I mean, what is keeping everybody from just going crazy or losing their mind? Is it movies? Is it back to the movies? We need these monster movies or fantastical things to escape to and take us out of our bubbles and our whatever, our phone, our own troubles, our own struggles. Is it just maybe that's kind of the full circle thing? Is Matinee is also about the spectacle of cinema and why we go to a movie theater. What do we seek when we go? What does it give us? It is just a screen that this, something's being projected on it. Like it's when you look at the science, like that's it, but we
Yeah.
can still believe it and get emotionally involved and be scared or laugh or cry, like and want to see it again. Keep going back and seeing it. So seeing Matinee reminded me of all those kind of feelings, and as a kid, like seeing movies with my family, and seeing stuff with my friends, and
Did you
yeah,
prefer seeing movies with when you were younger? Did you prefer when you were a kid? Did you prefer seeing movies with your family or with your friends?
depended on the movie. I something
I don't know
like
if you had to choose one, because obviously that would be the answer depending on the movie. But which one were you like? I looked forward to this one more. Watching a movie with your family or watching it with your friends?
Ninja Turtles with my friends, Rocky maybe with my family.
Gotcha. There you go.
Yeah,
I always liked looking
yeah.
forward to them with my friends. I always enjoyed it when I watched it with my family, but my friends, it was always something a little special. But yeah. But that being said, the movie that I did watch with my family, it was rare that we all watched it together. But when we did, it was fun. My memory is we saw Starship Troopers, the whole family.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Everybody liked it, or what was their take?
I don't think my mom liked it because she thought it was gross. My dad loved it. I loved it. And I think my sister liked it too. But my mom doesn't like bugs. So they're like big ones that were running. But we were in Okinawa. So I had to have been like maybe 12 or 13, maybe. And the whole family, we all went together. It was our, and it was funny. We went to the theater as a family to watch this movie, and the whole theater was filled with it was packed. and it was all with Air Force men because we were on Air Force base, and all the men were drunk. They were drunk as can be, and I watched that movie with my family, and everyone was cheering and clapping and laughing and gasping at all the. It was like one of the best ways to watch that movie. Yeah, it's a great memory.
And
It's
that
a
movie
great memory.
has social commentary, right? I don't know if you
It has
picked
a
up
ton,
that
yo,
age.
it's a total. Well, that age, like, yeah, it was so absurd. That's what kind of struck me when I was like, I think who was I was talking to somebody maybe in my early 20s, and I think it was their first time watching it, and they didn't catch on to it. I was like, it's right there. It's like it's really, really, it's not shy about it. And the whole movie is absurd. It's just kind of a wacky, crazy movie. Um, but yeah, but I just remember and that's like a hard R movie. There's the gore is insane, the nudity and the language, and it's just yeah, but I just remember just being blown away by it. I thought the effects were incredible at the time, and just it was just a great ride, and it was just so much fun, and it's a great memory that I have. And I just like yeah. So anytime I think of that movie, I'm always like, oh yeah, I just remember. I just remember like watching it with mom and dad, and mom's like, kind of like, when is this over? And dad's like laughing. And Adrian, my sister, she was young at the time. If I was like 13 or 14, she had to have been 10 or something. She was just kind of like, whoa, at all the effects. Because yeah, but at the time you could take like my roommate and I, we kind of she talks about it. She said there was a time you could take your family to an R-rated movie. Terminator 2, families wanting to go see it together. It's an R-rated movie, and no one, people are getting killed left and right, but you're there with the family because they look at all the cool stuff. I think the last R-rated movie that I remember seeing like families and were like the Matrix sequels because everyone fits the Matrix trilogy, they're all rated R. But you go in because you're just like, oh, you want to see
Is the
all the
first
cool.
one PG-13 or
No,
rated
first
R?
one's rated R. It's rated R.
Okay.
All of the movies are rated R.
Makes sense. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I do remember seeing that one with my father, The Matrix, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, movies like Speed, that's rated R, and the whole family sat and watched that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I also wrote down there's a scene in Matinee where one of the kids is trying to convince his friend to go see Mant, the movie, being
Yeah.
advertised in the town. And his friend's like, well, does it give you nightmares? Is it a nightmare movie? Does it give you nightmares?
Yeah.
And the kid goes, no, no nightmares, no nightmares.
Yeah. The one guy, they're too scary. Everyone had that friend. Is it gonna scare me? No. But I don't know about you, but I would go like, nah, you'll be just fine. Knowing knowing it's gonna terrify me.
Do you remember the movies that gave you nightmares? Like offhand, do you recall?
There were a couple like, all right, when I was a little kid, the first nightmare I remember having because of a movie was Ghostbusters. Because I had a dream where the dog thing like jumped out of the bathroom at me as a kid, and I remember, and even as a kid, I was like, "It's the monster from Ghostbusters." That scared me. Um, see what else when I was a kid. There was I had maybe it was around the time I saw Alien as a kid, one of the Alien movies, because my dad had all of these movies. He had them all. He was always so one of the Alien movies gave me a nightmare, not because of the monster, but because I was genuinely afraid of being stuck in space. And I found that absolutely terrifying. I think I had shark dreams from Jaws. They're all like small things, but as I got older, the last nightmare I think I had that kind of when I woke up, it kind of stemmed from maybe a memory of a movie was I don't think it was what was the movie? I don't know if it was The Strangers or The Descent, but it was something where it was like it was dark and something was I could just something was in front of me, and I could slowly make out its image, and it slowly was coming out. And I remember it just really, really, really freaked me out. But that was I think that was the last like big kind of nightmare I had. But what about you? So I can hear you.
Oh, for me, probably Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one. I think I probably maybe had some nightmares with that one.
Good one.
Um, Maybe the original Night of the Living Dead. Maybe like the very first time I saw it.
Wow.
I
How
think
old are
that
you
one
when
is
you said
still really scary. I mean, even I think that's one of the best horror movies in my opinion.
it? It
Original.
has. I do. I love it. I think the image when the little girl is like kills her mom at the end. That's still it. When she like rises up, that's still spooky. And then the ending always still gets me. It's one of those movies where every time I watch it, I'm like, I know it's coming, but you always kind of go like, I hope, like, man, maybe hopefully he'll like wave his hands or something, say like, no, 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 no. But yeah, that's an effective one.
Were there any with Matinee? Were there any laugh out loud moments for you? Were you like genuinely laughed out loud? Like were the
I
funny
really, I
scenes?
thought the funniest stuff to me was the movies within the movie. Anytime it would cut to especially the one with the young Dick Miller in it, when he was like, he's like that. It's like it was like that black and white one. What was it? Like the one guy was they're worried about. I can't remember the plot, but the way that they overdid the performance, and it was just that it was the right tone. I remember. But I'm a sucker for stuff like that. I remember that. I thought the joke about the like the I turned into a shopping cart or I'm a living shopping cart. I thought that was funny because I they were it was clear that it was Dante just kind of going like, yeah, we're gonna make fun of these kind of movies. I like this kind of I like them when they play them straight. You know what I mean? Like they play them in that style. You know, they're not winking at the camera, but you know what they're doing. I thought those to me were the funniest parts of that's I remember that was I'm sure John Goodman had a bunch of lines or something that just the way he would just throw it out there. But I'm just going, like I said, I'm going off of what I remember about it. And I do remember the movies within the movie really, really, I thought were the funniest parts. Yeah.
Oh, Andre, before we go, would you mind if you have time before we go reading the Roger Ebert, the last paragraph of his review for Matinee?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So here it goes. It's right here. And this is him just summing up the overall theme and feel of the movie. And it's a beautifully written piece. So here he goes. He goes, this is after he's described the movie. He goes, once again, this is a detail straight from movie history. A producer named Joe Solomon made millions from an inconsequential sex education film called Mom and Dad by stationing a nurse in the lobby and placing an ambulance outside to rush stock victims to the emergency room. Now, what would the makers or audiences of those 1950s movies have thought of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Basic Instinct, for that matter? Matinee was directed by Joe Dante, whose credentials are right for making this film. His credits include Piranha, The Howling, and Gremlins, and in his portrayal of the Goodwin character is a lot of the enjoyment Dante must feel in his own work. The Hollywood game today is often played as high finance sweepstakes, but in a gentler time, there was still room for a guy with a few bucks and a big imagination to make a little movie and sell it with showmanship and flim flam. And at the end of Matinee, we sense that time is coming to a close, along with a lot of other elements of American innocence. And that's the best way he sums up this movie
Wow.
and the feeling of it. It's a really, really well written thing.
Thank you. All right. Well,
So,
thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.